For months leading up to my wedding, my parents and sister kept saying, "We have a surprise for you, just wait." On the big day, not a single one of them showed up. Instead, a video played of them on a European vacation, smiling and saying, "She won't be hurt by this." I didn't reach out to them at all. But after I posted my wedding photos with my in-laws, my phone lit up, 290 calls in one day. You know that gut-wrenching feeling when you discover a betrayal so deep, it makes your blood run cold? Well, imagine finding out your entire family skipped your wedding, not for an emergency, but for a luxury vacation they gleefully documented online, captioned with, "The perfect family vacation without her." But that was just the beginning of their reckoning, because what they didn't know was who my husband really was. My relationship with my family? Always awkward. Always. I still remember walking into their living room one day, and the moment I stepped in, the conversation just died. My brother Benjamin and his wife Camila exchanged these weird, knowing glances, and my mom, Diana, plastered on a stiff smile. "Oh, Eliza," she said, "you're unusually early today. Work finished?" I just sighed. "Yeah, I finished early, wanted to have dinner at home." My dad, Victor, snorted without even looking up from his newspaper. "Oh, a miracle," he grumbled. Our lawyer deigned to look up from her law books. Before I could even respond, Benjamin jumped in. "Eliza, tell me about your meeting this morning. Did you sue another company?" Then he explained to Camila, like I wasn't even there, "Eliza only talks about numbers. She has a special talent for ruining the mood at parties." Camila giggled. "That's right. At the last holiday party, she went on and on about contract clauses. Half the guests just left." I tried to make an excuse, but what was the point? Every single conversation with them was like this. At dinner, Benjamin's kids were running wild, Camila was loudly planning summer vacations, and my parents just nodded along. Even when I tried desperately to talk about anything but work, to have a normal conversation, this suffocating silence would just fall. Camila would chime in, "Eliza is always too serious. You should learn to have a little fun. Life isn't just about work." Then Benjamin would make this ridiculously exaggerated gesture towards his kids, "Look, kids. Don't be like your aunt. Always work, work, work. She even forgets how to smile." The kids, bless their innocent hearts, would just laugh, and I'd just stare down at my glass of water, my throat tight. They had no idea, or maybe they just chose to forget, that I was helping pay their living expenses. This, after I'd paid my own law school tuition and built my entire career from scratch. But in their eyes, I was just the boring, serious, eldest daughter. That night, as I was leaving, my father, unusually, called out to me. "By the way," he said, casual as anything, "about the cost of Benjamin's birthday party next month, you'll help out a bit, won't you?" I just nodded, quietly. My entire relationship with them was like this. My value, my very existence, was directly proportional to the thickness of my wallet. But the day would come when all of that would shatter. The shift started about 2 months before my wedding. My father, Victor, began acting super strange. Not in a bad way, exactly, but definitely secretive, suspiciously so. Whispering on the phone, slamming his laptop shut if I walked into his office. Camila, my sister-in-law, started giving me these little, knowing smiles, saying things like, "Eliza, you're going to love what we're planning for your big day." Even my brother, Benjamin, who's usually so buried in his investment banking world he barely registers family events, was dropping hints. And honestly, I got excited. Your wedding is supposed to be the milestone, right? We weren't wealthy, and I'd always been independent, so I wasn't expecting anything extravagant. But all the secrecy had me thinking, maybe they were planning something sweet, like an amazing bridal shower or a rehearsal dinner. My dad kept telling me to be patient whenever I tried to fish for details. I was honestly just so surprised they were showing any interest in my marriage at all. "Dad, I'm planning a family dinner to introduce my fiancé, James. You absolutely have to come." I insisted over the phone about a month ago. "Of course, Eliza," he answered, "I'll definitely come, if work finishes early." But then, on the promised day, I got a text. "Sorry, forgot I had a golf appointment with my friend Bob. Let's meet on the wedding day." I just sighed. It wasn't the first time. My father always prioritized his work and hobbies over anything important in my life. So, the dinner with James got cancelled, thanks to my dad's golf game. Then came the wedding day. The day I'd dreamt of. But when I got to the venue, no one was there. I scanned the empty rows, a knot tightening in my stomach. Mom, Dad, Benjamin, Camila, Adrian, Sophia, none of them. My heart started pounding. Something must have happened, I thought, desperately. I called my dad. Rejected. My mom? Same thing. Texts to Benjamin and Camila? No reply. My soon-to-be husband, James, squeezed my hand, his calm eyes reassuring me. Eliza, don't worry. Something must have happened. They wouldn't intentionally not come. James, in his perfectly tailored suit, gave me that gentle smile that was just for me. His parents looked concerned, but James was decisive. We decided to proceed. And so, in front of empty rows, feeling the gaping absence of my family, I said I do. James's hand held mine, firm, unwavering. The look in his eyes told me I was enough, even without them. The wedding was completed, successfully, but my mind was a whirlwind of worry. After the ceremony, back at our new home, the worry gnawed at me. Then it hit me, I had an Instagram account. I barely ever posted, just followed my family to check in sometimes. And there it was. Posted 3 hours earlier. A photo. My entire family, Dad, Benjamin, Camila, Mom, Adrian, and Sophia, all smiling, wine glasses raised, in front of a medieval chateau at an exclusive French estate. Benjamin's caption made my blood boil, the perfect family vacation without her. The comments? Oh, they were worse. Dad replied, she's too busy anyway, followed by a laughing emoji. Camila added something venomous about career-obsessed women not appreciating family traditions. And my mom? It's wonderful to escape from being stressed by her wedding. She was right there in the photos, looking completely relaxed, designer sunglasses perched on her nose. James held me tight, looking at the photos with me. I could feel his anger radiating off him. I can't believe they would do this, he frowned, his voice low. Eliza, this just shows how little they value you. But I'm different. You mean everything to me. He sat beside me, gently stroking my hair as he saw my hands tremble, clutching my glass. No one has the right to hurt you. You're an amazing person. I'm lucky to be able to see what they don't deserve to see. His words were comforting, a balm on a raw wound, but the pain in my heart didn't disappear. I sat there, scrolling through more photos, my throat tight. Vineyard tours, river cruises, family portraits, all time-stamped and geotagged to some chateau I'd never even heard of, starting 2 days earlier. I don't know what kicked in, shock, pure rage, or some weird, unsettling calm. But I didn't call them. Didn't text. Didn't comment. I just poured another glass of champagne with my trembling hands and started thinking. Thinking hard. James brought hot chocolate from the kitchen and sat next to me. As an excellent lawyer, you probably understand, he said, his voice calm and steady. But now we need to keep records of everything from a legal perspective. He took out his tablet and logged into some internal company system. I shouldn't really be showing you this, he said hesitantly, but this is your father's activity record at our company. It shows how his decisions have negatively impacted us. It was in that moment I realized, for the very first time, that James wasn't just an executive. He was at the very top. The access he had, the information he was showing me, wasn't something a normal executive would possess. James, are you? He smiled slightly. Yes, I was recently promoted. It's not officially announced yet, but I've become your father's direct superior. Actually, I've become the CEO. My jaw dropped. But there's something more important right now, he quickly added, his voice firm, and that's to protect you. I can't allow them to treat you like this. His kindness and sheer determination gave me a surge of unexpected strength. The first thing I did was check the bank account I used to support their living expenses. Sure enough, $400 had been transferred to my father's personal account last Friday. I scrolled back through older social media posts. My mom had been making comments about a special family retreat for weeks. This wasn't spontaneous. This was planned. Planned without me. Planned around me. Planned despite my wedding. By midnight, my hurt had transformed into white-hot determination. I opened my laptop and started documenting everything, screenshots, financial transfers, a meticulous timeline of every lie they told me about wedding surprises. I rarely cry, but I felt hot tears burning behind my eyes. Not sad tears. Angry ones. What do you think we should do now? I asked James, still staring at the screen. First, let's prepare to protect yourself legally, he said. Then, when the time comes, we'll show them the truth. But for now, let's rest. Tomorrow will be a long day. He put his arm around my shoulder and gently led me to the bedroom. 3 days after the wedding, my phone suddenly exploded. My dad texted, "Are you upset about something?" Camila called twice. Benjamin sent a desperate message, "Dad's getting worried, can you just respond?" I didn't answer. Instead, I posted my first Instagram photo in months. Just me, in my apartment, surrounded by wedding sample decorations I'd picked out myself. No caption. No tags. Just a date stamp. That's when the flood began. At exactly 9:44 p.m., my phone lit up like a Christmas tree. Message after message. Dad was in full-blown panic mode. Benjamin, for once, actually sounded concerned. Camila sent voice messages that grew increasingly desperate. By midnight, I counted 290 messages across all platforms: texts, WhatsApp, Instagram DMs, emails, even voicemails. The last one, from Dad, just said, "We're coming back tomorrow. We need to talk." James was sitting next to me in the living room, watching my expression with a worried look. He'd actually made his move the day after our wedding. He woke up early that day, and after a shower, quietly made a phone call in the corner of the living room. I was still in bed, slowly waking up from the previous day's exhaustion. I noticed his tone was different than usual, businesslike, calm, but with an unwavering strength. "Yes, Victor," I heard James say, his voice firm. "The decision remains unchanged from Monday. You will be transferred to the regional branch. Your future will be considered based on your performance there." My eyes flew open. My father's name. I shot out of bed and rushed to the living room. James was holding the phone, his expression serious. He saw me, gave a small nod, and continued the call. "No, this is not personal. It's purely a matter of performance and compliance," he said, his voice even. "Your department has failed to meet targets for 3 consecutive quarters. Furthermore, there have been violations of the company's ethics code." The voice from the phone grew louder, it sounded like my father was shouting. James remained perfectly calm, then switched the phone to speaker mode. "You don't have the authority," my father's voice echoed throughout the room. "I've supported this company for 20 years. You're just a..." "Victor," James calmly interrupted, "I was officially appointed as the CEO 3 months ago. All personnel decisions are within my authority." A moment of stunned silence. Then my father's voice completely changed. This time, it was laced with fear. "Wait, James, there must be some misunderstanding. I was just..." "You skipped a family wedding to go on a European vacation," James said, his voice stern. "Our company upholds the value of cherishing family. You failed to uphold even that basic principle." "Wedding?" My father's voice sounded utterly confused. "What wedding?" James looked at me, his expression softening slightly. "Eliza's wedding. Your daughter's." On the other end of the phone, something fell. Then my mother's voice was heard from a distance. "Victor, what happened?" "Eliza's wedding." My father sounded completely shocked. James reached out to me, and I sat next to him. "I am James Ryan, your superior, and your son-in-law." A complete silence, then frantic voices erupted from the phone. It sounded like my father was hurriedly explaining something to my mother. Benjamin's voice could also be heard in the background. They were clearly agitated. "But..." My father's voice returned, now trembling. "Why didn't anyone tell me that Eliza and you?" "I didn't know." "We sent the invitations 3 months ago," I said for the first time, my voice ice cold. There was no response. "I also called Mom to confirm, but was told you were busy." "Eliza," my father gasped. "You were there?" "Listen, this is all a misunderstanding. We were just on vacation. I didn't know your fiancé was James, or that he was my boss." At that moment, there was a sudden movement on the other end, and we could hear Benjamin's voice. "James! Eliza! Listen, we learned in Europe that Dad was being demoted. Everyone was upset and we tried to contact you, but..." "You cancelled my wedding," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, but sharp enough to cut. "You didn't think about the most important event in my life at all." "Eliza," my mother started speaking. "We were just..." "Enough," James said before hanging up. "Victor, I expect a report from the regional branch on Monday." When the call ended, I buried my face in my knees, a mixture of raw hurt and grim satisfaction washing over me. James sat beside me, putting his arm around my shoulders. "Honestly," he said, his voice quiet, "I didn't think your father wouldn't recognize me. He had met me in board meetings, should have known I was part of the management team. I guess he really didn't consider you in his life at all, Eliza." His words, though meant to comfort, still pierced my heart. My own father couldn't even remember my fiancé's face. 3 hours later, our smartphones kept ringing, a relentless flood of 290 desperate messages from my father, mother, Benjamin, and Camila. They suddenly realized my importance, not because I was their daughter, but because my husband had the power to affect their livelihoods. "What are you going to do?" James asked gently, stroking my shoulder. "I'll ignore them," I said, determination hardening my voice. "Just as they ignored my wedding, I'll ignore their messages." James smiled slightly and kissed me. I finally understood. They didn't even know who my fiancé was. In the past, I felt like I was only a supporting character for my family. But now, I had finally become the protagonist. And with my partner, James, I was ready to start a new life. I'd been loyal to my family for years. Never once had I deliberately ignored my father when he needed legal help. We spent that evening building my legal protection strategy. I called my bank and removed my family members' access to my accounts. Around midnight, I discovered an email thread between Dad and Benjamin from 2 weeks earlier. Dad, should we even tell Eliza about the France trip? Benjamin, why bother? She'll just worry about her wedding. Dad, true, lol. It's not like she ever focuses on anything but legal matters anyway. Benjamin, she probably won't notice we're gone until after her wedding. Dad, I think you're right, lol. That was the moment something inside me crystallized. I'd been holding on to a tiny, fragile hope that maybe everything was just a big misunderstanding. But that email? It shattered it. On the day they were supposed to return, I waited in my apartment. James said he had work and promised to join me in the evening. At 4:32 p.m., I heard multiple voices in the elevator of my building. The wheels of suitcases rolled on the marble floor outside my door. Then the intercom rang. I slowly responded. When I opened the door, it was an unnatural scene, jet-lagged, exhausted faces forcing cheerful smiles. My father was clutching a gift bag that clearly hadn't been in his original luggage. "Eliza," my father said, his voice forcefully bright. "Why didn't you answer the phone? I wanted to ask you about my job." I stared at them with a cold, unyielding expression. My mother looked apologetic, and Camila was staring at the floor. Only Benjamin hadn't completely abandoned his somewhat arrogant attitude. As this tense, awkward conversation began at the doorway, the elevator doors opened again. James appeared, in his suit, his expression stern when he saw my father. "Victor," he said, his voice calm, chillingly so. My father's face drained of color. "James," he choked, "is it true what was written in that email? Are you two together?" James stood next to me and put his arm around my shoulder, a clear statement. "Victor, I am Eliza's husband. The wedding was 4 days ago. You were invited, but it seems you prioritized your vacation in France." My father's face was twisted with a mixture of fear and confusion. "Eliza, is he really my company's CEO?" "Yes, he is," I said calmly, my voice flat. "But you know what? You chose traveling over my wedding. And now you've come to complain about James demoting you." Benjamin stepped forward, desperate. "Eliza, listen. We didn't know your fiancé was actually Dad's boss. Otherwise." "That has to be a blatant lie," I said firmly, cutting him off. "James's promotion was decided last month. His name was circulating in the company emails. The reason you know nothing about my fiancé is because you have no interest in my life." My father said in a trembling voice, "Eliza, we're family. Family helps each other, right?" James calmly interjected. "Victor, someone who doesn't value family has no right to talk about family." As those words echoed in the hallway, complete silence fell. My father's shoulders slumped, despair spreading across his face. My mother covered her mouth with her hand, letting out an uncontrollable sob. Even Benjamin lost his usual arrogance and dropped his gaze to the floor. "I notified you when you were in France last week," James continued, his voice still unnervingly calm. "Employees who don't value family are not needed in the company. You are to be demoted to a rural subsidiary. It was only after you received that notice that you suddenly started to care about your daughter's wedding." Camila said in a small, pathetic voice, "We didn't know." "Victor," my father suddenly said, as if trying to grasp at something. "We had to go back." James looked at her, his expression softening slightly, but the resolve in his eyes was still there. "Please leave now. Eliza has been hurt enough." My father took a step back and dropped the gift bag. Its contents scattered on the floor, but no one tried to pick them up. My crying mother grabbed my father's arm and pulled him toward the elevator. Eliza, Benjamin said finally, his voice barely audible. Can I talk? Get out, I said quietly but firmly. They slumped their shoulders, heads bowed, as they entered the elevator. The last scene visible through the closing doors was my father's devastated expression and my mother's tear-soaked face. Benjamin was supporting Camila, who was crying like a child. When the door closed, James gently embraced me. Are you okay? He asked kindly. I'm fine, I answered. I'm no longer an invisible presence. That's all I need. Looking out the window, I could see them walking through the lobby with heavy steps toward a taxi. My father no longer looked arrogant, he just looked like an old, broken man. Watching them get into the taxi and drive away in the rain, I felt true freedom for the first time. 1 month after the wedding, their situation had visibly deteriorated. James and I were having coffee at the breakfast table, discussing my father's situation. On James's laptop was my father's performance report, and the numbers were harsh. He only lasted 2 weeks at the regional branch, James said quietly. He was late every day, he even fell asleep in meetings. Yesterday, he formally submitted his resignation. I picked up my coffee cup and stared at the steam, nodding. As expected. James took my hand. Do you regret it? He asked. No, I shook my head. They made their choices. I just made mine. As we were preparing to go to work after breakfast, my new phone rang. It was my mother's number. After exchanging a glance with James, I answered on speaker mode. Eliza, please listen, my mother's voice sounded tired and thin. Your father quit his job. We're financially struggling. We can't make our mortgage payments, and our credit card debt is growing. Could you help us a little? James silently looked at me, nodding slightly, indicating he was leaving this decision to me. How much do you need? I asked calmly. About $3,000 this month, my mother said in a small voice. It's temporary. Your father will find a new job soon. I struggled to contain my laughter. $3,000. Almost exactly the same amount as their luxury hotel bill in France. Tell me honestly, why do you need the money? I said. I told you, mortgage and... The real reason, I interrupted her. What is father trying to do after James demoted him? After a long silence, my mother sighed. He has contacted a competitor. He's planning to sell confidential information from James's company. We need money for a lawyer. I could see James's expression hardening. He quickly began taking notes and gestured that he would contact the legal department. I see, was all I said. Mom, you just admitted to conspiracy and corporate espionage and industrial spying. This call is being recorded. Eliza, my mother gasped. How could you record a family conversation? How ironic, I said coldly. A family who chose traveling over my wedding is now bringing up family. That evening, James and I were drinking wine on the penthouse balcony, gazing at the city lights. He put his arm around my shoulder and pulled me close. What do you think? I asked. Do you think they'll give up? They have nothing left to lose, James said quietly. That's the most dangerous kind of person. 2 days later, I received a direct call from my father. Eliza, his voice was strangely calm. I need some financial assistance. It's temporary. I'll pay it back soon. James and I were listening on speakerphone again. He had already contacted a lawyer and started preparing a restraining order. How much do you need? I asked. $5,000, he said without hesitation. As family, as a daughter helping out, that much is only natural, right? I looked at James. He just shook his head. Dad, do you understand how dangerous the gamble you're taking is? I asked quietly. James took everything from me, he suddenly shouted, his voice cracking. My position, my dignity, even my daughter. He should be punished. Your problem has always been that you're self-centered, I said, my voice rising with a quiet fury. I am not a thing, not a possession to be taken. I made my own choices. Did you know he was the CEO? Did you marry him knowing he was my boss? I married him knowing who he is, I answered. Because he is kind, honest, and respects me. Things you never showed me. The phone went silent, and was then disconnected. The next morning, the news was shocking. My father had been arrested for compliance violations and attempted sale of corporate secrets, according to a report from the company security. My mother and Camila were crying at home. What should I have done? I asked James. I could have stopped them. James touched my cheek and said gently, Eliza, these were their choices, not your responsibility. That afternoon, I formally applied for a restraining order through my lawyer against my parents, Benjamin, and Camila. I couldn't let those who were destroying their own lives destroy mine as well. You forgot my existence, I wrote in my final email to them. Now it's my turn to forget yours. From that day, I created a new phone number, a new email address, and embraced a new beginning. James supported me throughout the process, and at night, he held me in his arms and whispered, You're not alone. I am your family. 6 months later, we bought a new house, a beautiful place by the lake, away from the city's hustle and bustle. James successfully reorganized the company, and I was promoted to chief legal officer. The only traces of my former family were the occasional documents from the court, official notices. The demands for gifts from Adrian and Sophia were gone. And I was free. The old family bonds were broken, yes, but James and I were building a new one. A family where I was visible. Every night after dinner, James and I would drink wine and talk about future plans. Once a month, we'd have dinner with James's parents and dream about our own family. And sometimes, his casual words would give me a sense of security I had never experienced before. You are my everything, Eliza. And for the first time in my life, I truly felt like I was